Welcome to the Raising Confident Girls podcast, your guide to raising strong, confident daughters. I'm Melissa Jones, the founder of Girls Positivity Club and a teacher for over 20 years. In a world where girls often feel overwhelmed, anxious, and confused, this podcast is your go-to space. As caregivers, we navigate challenges together. I founded Girls Positivity Club to provide a place where you belong and get the tools to face today's hurdles. Consider this your regular check-in with a trusted friend, offering insights and practical tips for meaningful conversations. I'm here to help you feel confident on this journey of raising a generation of empowered girls. Let's dive in and raise those confident girls together. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Raising Confident Girls. I'm your host, Melissa Jones, and the founder of Girls Positivity Club. And I'm going to be talking with you today about a topic that I hear a lot from parents, and that is your daughter's big emotions and it feeling a bit like drama sometimes and how to help them. So this episode is all going to be about why your daughter's big emotions aren't just drama and how it's actually normal to have these big reactions to things and how to navigate it, because it can feel really hard to relate to at times, especially when to you it doesn't feel like a big deal, but to them it's a big thing and it might even turn into some kind of a meltdown. Before we get too deep into the episode, I wanted to remind you that if you are interested in your daughter working with me one-on-one, I am taking some calls this month and opening up some space, because I've had a lot of parents reach out to me and say, like, I love your podcast, I have girls in your clubs, or, I just started learning about what you do. Is there a way that you ever support girls in different ways besides clubs and on the podcast? And the answer is yes. I work with one-to-one girls, and they can be any age. The main girls I'm working with right now are the older elementary school to middle school age, but they really can be any age. I've worked with girls of all ages and have over 20 years experience of teaching and supporting girls. And so if you are interested and you have a certain thing that your daughter needs extra support with, an extra mentor, role model, to get some extra strategy and support, and just another voice in her life that's going to support yours. And, really it's all about being that person who is not the parent. And I hear this a lot from parents, especially of the girls that I work with. And it's like, I've been telling her the same thing for so long. And when you told her, she came home and said this, like, I'm going to try this. And I've been trying to get her to do it for a while, but there's something about an outside person helping support your daughter. And I know I had that growing up. And, when I would have like a favorite aunt or an older person that I looked up to who was a good influence on my life, it was like, they could tell me the same thing that my mom or dad were telling me, but it just meant something different because I didn't feel like they were biased. Because the girls even tell me today, like, they feel like, yes, they believe their parents when they tell them certain things, but there's a difference between an outside person that they trust saying it and them saying it. And what we want is to be encouraging them in the same way and helping support them. And I'm just another voice. And I've had a lot of really good success with working with girls one-to-one. So if your daughter needs that extra support, I would love to be that person in her life. And if you want to get on a call with me, we can talk about it and how that would look. And you can tell me about your daughter and all of the good things. So just send me a message at girlspositivityclub@gmail.com, or you can just reach out to me on social media. Just send me a DM or a personal message and I will get back with you and we will figure out a time to chat, and we'll just go on from there and see if it's a good fit. So going back to today's episode, which is all about big emotions. I see this a lot, and I saw it in the classroom as well, in clubs, in camps that we do, in one-to-ones when I work with girls one-to-one, and that is processing big emotions, knowing how to handle it when they have them, and how to communicate it effectively with the people in their life, because it can be brushed off a lot of times as drama or being girl drama, something like that. And it doesn't, when I think of girl drama, I think of people really categorizing like when girls are having conflicts in friendship. But when I hear a parent say, like, oh, she's just being dramatic, it a lot of times has to do with her trying to process through big feelings and not knowing where to put them and not knowing how to work through it and needing support in that. So, what they need from us is not for us to call it drama. They need us to listen and support them in different ways. And I don't think that it's always people are trying to be, mean when they say it. I think they're frustrated. I think parents are frustrated and they're like, she's just being really dramatic about this thing. But what it is we're not understanding her perspective of how it feels to her. So to them, it is a big deal. To us, it isn't, because we're looking at it from an adult lens and from an adult perspective. But in their life, it is a big deal, especially when it comes to friendships and especially when it comes to making mistakes in front of other people or failing in front of others or doing something like that, or siblings getting on their nerves and maybe they do something out of character. Those are all very common things that girls can have big emotions about. Maybe she's doing something, she's not doing it well, and she has a big reaction to that. Or there's a homework meltdown where you're doing homework and pretty soon there's a big blow up and there's crying and there's yelling or screaming. And it's like, what just happened? And it really is going down to that core feeling that she doesn't feel smart, or she doesn't feel like she can do it, or she's tried this so many times and she just doesn't understand it. There's something not clicking and she's really worried that there's something wrong with her, that everyone else is getting it and she's having to work this hard at it. So those are all examples I've heard in real life. And so, whether it is a meltdown or whether it's a disagreement with a friend that you're like, oh my gosh, just get over it. You guys just always do this and this always happens. And why don't you just make up and get over it? That's not helpful for her, because to her it is a big deal. And if it keeps happening, then it hasn't been solved. It hasn't been resolved. And what they're doing isn't working. And they need us to support them through it and to help them through it. So, the truth is, it really is that they need to be acknowledged. They want their feelings to be acknowledged, whether your daughter is in elementary school, middle school, high school, college even. These big emotions are normal and they're part of growing up. So it's really important for us to help them navigate through it and to show them empathy and to give them the right tools. And for every girl, it's different. So I'm going to give you some variety of tools that you can try and strategies you can try, tips you can try, things you can say, and you just have to figure out what works for you and her. And, sometimes it is an outside voice or an outside idea that you try that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that worked and that helped. And so, as parents, we see things, like I said, from an adult lens, and something that we can think shouldn't be upset over something like that. Or on the surface, it looks like drama or it looks like a minor issue, but maybe it is, coming out as this big emotion. And what we're trying to do is help them by really listening to them, really supporting them so that they build that resilience. They know how to work through hard feelings. They can feel whatever they need to feel, but knowing that they're heard, that they're understood, that they can handle things that life throws them, whether it's school stress, whether it's navigating girl friendships, whether it's figuring out who they are, figuring out how they learn best. Really, it's giving them the tools to process those big feelings. And the more confident they get in doing this, the more they'll be able to manage it as they're getting older and even into adulthood. So if you notice, if your daughters ever come home from school and they're stressed, they slam the door, they run to their room, like they don't want to talk, they've felt like you could just tell from their body language, by the way they're coming in, that they feel upset or overwhelmed by something or frustrated. I know sometimes I would come in and go straight to my room and I would just like collapse on the bed and just have my, maybe my head down on my pillow and just feel very defeated because I felt very chaotic at school. And my mom would always come up and she would sit on the bed with me and, she'd ask me if I wanted a snack, or, say what's wrong. And I didn't always want to talk about it at that time. And I hear the same from girls today. Like, they don't always want to talk about things right away when they get home from school. Sometimes they need that decompression time. And I've made the mistake, I know, many times, with asking too many questions, with jumping to a conclusion right away, and it often doesn't end well. And then before you know it, you are getting the big emotion toward you, and you're like, what just happened? So it's really acknowledging her emotion, helping guide her through processing it, and supporting and knowing what she needs in that moment and helping her identify that too. Because, like I've talked about before, it's not about us managing every single thing that they do and us guiding them through every single step every single time. We eventually want them to be able to do it themselves and to try different things to see what works best for them as they work through these big emotions. And so, I always tell the girls, feelings are visitors. And it's like when someone comes to your house to visit, they don't move in and live with you. So it's like that with emotions. Like, you have someone come over to your house, if you're thinking of the visitor, let's say, and you invite them in, maybe they have something to eat, they eventually go home, you enjoy their company, but you don't, or maybe you don't sometimes, but they don't move in with you and live there, and you don't stay in that same, with that visitor there all the time. So it's like that with feelings. Feelings are meant to be felt no matter what they are. You feel the feeling and then you move through it as you need to. So you don't stay in the feeling forever. So it's really teaching them how to move through it in a way that is healthy, in a way that acknowledges how they feel about the situation, whatever it is, and then them processing through it and figuring out what works best for them and what is a healthy way of handling these big emotions. And they're not always on our timeline. Like, sometimes they hold on to something longer than we think they should. That's when it can start to feel dramatic, or that they're spiraling and just continuing to replay it in their mind. That rumination is happening. And so it can really cause this emotional source of stress for parents and for the girls. And you can really easily fall into the idea of just like dismissing it, like, oh my gosh, this is just a phase, this is something she's going through, this is drama, whatever it is. But this is called emotional regulation. And what we want to do is equip our girls with how to regulate their emotions. It's not always going to go perfectly, just like it doesn't always go perfectly with us. But when girls don't feel heard, it can be a negative effect on their mental health, and they can start to internalize that they aren't good at feeling feelings. They don't know how to work through it. They don't know how to be independent about it, things like that. So the challenge is to help them navigate it and express their emotions in a way that is helpful for them and for you to understand where they're coming from, even if you don't totally get it, or even if you don't agree with why they're feeling a certain emotion. So the first thing is to normalize that it's okay to feel. So I talked about that before, is like, you want to make them feel like it's normal to have big emotions. It's normal to, especially during stressful times, that's very normal. And a lot of times people will, like, parents will panic if they, let's say, for example, they have their first crush and they get their heart broken, and they feel like that they should get over it faster than what they do. So it's really like not on our timeline necessarily, but we also don't want them to stay in that feeling for an extended period of time. And if so, like, that's kind of a sign that there's something deeper going on that we need to address and talk with them about. So it's normal to feel stress. It's normal to want to take all the stress away, but validating her feelings and saying things like, I can see why you feel upset when this didn't go your way, because was it that you wanted it to look a certain way when you were done? So maybe if they are perfectionistic and like they do something that doesn't turn out the way they think and they have a huge reaction to it, for you, it's like, well, it's okay if it doesn't turn out perfect. I've never taught you that everything has to be perfect. But to them it is. And so you're like, why are they making this big of a deal that the icing didn't turn out on this cake or whatever it would be. Or maybe if it's a school project, like in elementary school, when they're frustrated by it, like it's not, maybe they're making something and it's not going well, or they're writing something and it's just, they don't know what to say next and they're getting super frustrated. It's acknowledging, like, hey, I know this feels hard. I know you don't know what to say, but let's think about this. It's okay to feel upset about this. Sometimes it doesn't go exactly as we plan, but we can work through this together. So it's about you becoming an ally with them and like a team, making it a team effort instead of like, oh, just go on, just keep going, it'll be fine, like don't worry about it. Those types of things, I think when we say them, we mean well, but it's not always helpful for them, and it makes them feel kind of dismissed in their feelings. So being like, it's okay to feel upset, or it doesn't mean you have to say every time, I know exactly how you feel, unless you really do. But you can just say something like, it's okay to be upset right now. Um, let's take a break and let's go over and do this other thing and come back to it, or whatever that is. Or saying, like, everybody has a tough time with something. And if they're crying and being like, I'm the only one this is hard for. Why is this easy for everyone else and not me? And it's like, well, everybody, has their own challenges, and they may not be able to hear you in that moment, but it's like, this problem, this story that you're reading, this article you're writing, or whatever, may be easy for some people, but it's okay if it's not for you. Like, we'll get through it together and we'll break it down and we'll work through it, and I'll support you in any way I can. And it's teaching her, like, okay, it's okay if I don't do things exactly like everybody else, or it's okay if it doesn't come exactly the same way as it does everybody else. Maybe they have other challenges. So it's opening her eyes to, you don't see what other people struggle with or have a hard time with. And that's okay. And you can also ask them, what's making you feel upset right now? What can you do to reset? What is something we need to do? Do we need to step away? Do you need to, um, have it broken down in a different way? What is it that would help you feel more calm or feel more in control, or whatever it is? So it's putting that question out there of, what's making you feel upset and what can we do to calm down together, to reset, to whatever that is. Or do you need space? Do you need a few minutes alone? And then can we come back together and talk about this? Because they may not be ready in the moment to talk. And then in a middle school age, it might be more like, it's okay to feel mad when someone hurts your feelings. Like, you have every right to feel that way. And encouraging her to express how it makes her feel. She can either talk about it, she can write about it, she can create art. Like, I've had a lot of girls who have, especially at that middle school age, they create something and that helps them get that anger out, that whatever feeling they're having out in a unique way. And I know that a lot of art is created out of strong emotion. So, that's one way. Or maybe they love to play an instrument and maybe they just start playing, or, maybe they like to anything, listen to a book or whatever. So, you know, finding a way that's a positive outlet. Maybe they want to go for a walk or a run. Maybe they want to go outside. Maybe they want to play with the dogs. Like, finding another way to feel the feelings, but get that expression of whatever they're feeling out. And you can check in with, like, you know, what's on your mind? Like, what's been going on lately? And they might say nothing, but if you can tell that they're having a big emotion, like, what's making you upset, is still another good question to ask, no matter what age they are. And then even with teens and like in the high school age, it's bringing these intense emotions. They can bring intense emotions around academic pressure, knowing what they want to be when they grow up, what they want to do after high school, what college they want to go to, or if they even want to go to college. If they have a boyfriend, if they, are having trouble with friendships, whatever that would be, it's really just thinking about, okay, what do you need to reset or think about something else? What do you need to process through it? And there is such a power in just getting still and breathing. And I know that seems so simple, but even doing a box breath where they breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4, breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4. Like even just doing something simple like that can really help reset your nervous system and help. And so it's teaching her different ways, again, that she can get the feelings out, whether it's journaling, whether it's breathing, whether it's getting outside in nature, whether it's, um, doing something she enjoys until she's ready to process through the emotion. And it's you providing that safe space for her, no matter what age she is, to talk through it. And you can say something like, it seems like you're overwhelmed. What's the main thing that's making you feel this way? And it's asking those open-ended questions. She may not know how to express it, but even you saying like, you seem a little bit overwhelmed right now. Um, do you want to talk about what's making you feel this way? They may be open to talking about it in that moment. They may not. So it's just continuing to check in with them. That's so powerful in helping them process through and regulate and figure out, what do I need right now? And what would make me feel better? That's a healthy way to express it, or to just get it out and not hold it in and think that they have to be alone and solve it by themselves, or that they're going to be dismissed by how they're feeling as being dramatic or just blowing something out of proportion. And then the second tip is to help her create, like I said, those healthy emotional outlets. So giving her healthy ways to express these intense emotions. So at a younger age, if they are, having a tantrum or being overwhelmed, it's again the deep breathing techniques. It is, physical exercise. It's creative outlets like writing or drawing, and using different visuals, to help. So when they're younger, sometimes they need like a hand signal, or um, they need a spot, like a calm down spot in their room or something, or a create spot where they can go and they don't need to explain in the moment when they're having a really huge emotion. They just need to go to that spot, and you can have an agreed upon, sometimes girls like to go to a certain place in their room and they like to relax and they like to do whatever makes them happy. It might be surrounded in their stuffed animals or their squishmallows, or it might be that they have things to squeeze, or it might be they want to go punch a pillow. Whatever those things are for her, it's having that agreed upon thing that they can do. And then you talk about it later after they've decompressed and they're able to talk. Because when they're in that emotional state, in that heightened emotional state, they're not always going to be able to communicate effectively. I don't think anyone can when they're in that heightened state. And so they need some time to process through it without just replaying it and escalating the emotion. So it's having, when they're not upset, it's having things in place, tools in place that are allowed. Like if she is allowed to punch her pillow, if you have a punching bag in the garage and she is allowed to go out there and do that when she's feeling angry instead of punching people. If it is that she is allowed to get her art set out and just start drawing, if that helps calm her down. If it's, whatever, if there's a special beanbag in her room that she goes and sits on, and there's a quiet, dark place in her room. Like I've heard girls say that they like to sit in their closet, not like lock themselves in, but they have like a cozy spot that they've, created for themselves. So it's helping her realize what she needs, and then having her have the agreement that she can go there and she doesn't have to talk about it. Maybe there's just a hand signal and she goes there, or maybe you have a code word and she goes there. So this would be if she's not able to express it in a calm way, you just know that there's a calm down thing that she can do that helps her, instead of having to talk about it in the moment when she's feeling that really big emotion. And then same thing with middle school or high school. It's, what are your creative outlets? What are ways that help you calm down and decompress? And so whatever that is. So it's asking her, like, what helps you feel better when you're stressed? Can we try something new together? So maybe you and her go for a walk together, and you don't talk about it. You just walk and you just notice things around you, like, oh, look at that cute dog. Or, maybe it's just you walk in silence, or maybe you, um, have a way you communicate that's nonverbal. So you have a notebook and you write back and forth to each other. That's a really effective tool called written conversation that I've used in the classroom lots of times, but it's also a really good communication tool if they don't want to verbally communicate. But again, it might not be in that moment. It might be later. They want to write down what's happening and they want to show it to you. Or maybe they want to write it and rip it up because they just want to release it. And you don't have to read it. And, you can have that decompression time after, that reflection time where you can ask them, did that make you feel better to be able to do that? And how can I support you? As they're getting older, it's you asking, how can I support you? And if they're doing things that are dangerous or are hurting others, obviously setting that boundary of like, these things are not allowed, but these are the things that are. You're not allowed to get on your bike and just take off because that's unsafe and we don't know where you're going. But you are allowed to go in the backyard and sit under the tree. If you need to be away, you're allowed to go here. You're not allowed to get on your bike and just ride around because we don't know where you're going. We don't, unless you have an agreed upon spot or whatever. And same thing in high school. So it's helping her find those outlets. Is it yoga? Is it stretching? Is it going for a run? Is it, and same thing with the boundaries, whatever that would be for her. And it's, what are ways that help you manage these big emotions or the stress, and how could I support you in this? Is there something new you'd like to try? So no matter their age, if something's not working, you can always try different things and see what those things might be in her mind. And if she's not sure, then you can just brainstorm together, like, and you can even share with her, like, here's what I do when I feel this way, to get my mind off of it for a little bit. And then I come back to it, and I think about why I felt that way and whatever, and we can do that together. So it's offering that support and also offering her the independence to figure out what works for her. And it's really going to be trial and error. And it may not be the same thing every time, and so sometimes deep breathing may help. Other times she may need to go outside. Sometimes she might need to write or draw or, hit something or squeeze something, like something that's soft or whatever. And then, the last tip is, and I feel like I've talked about all these things throughout, but giving her the space to process, but being there when needed. So I think it's just mainly communicating that with her. Sometimes she might need her own space to process her emotions on her own. And then it's important to give her that space while also letting her know that you're there to support her when she's ready. So in elementary school, it could be after she loses a game with a friend or she argued with a friend. It could be giving her a few minutes alone to calm down and then check in gently after a while. Like, hey, do you want to talk? And letting her know that you're there when she's ready. And then you might say something like, take your time to reset or cool off or whatever it is that you have in your language that you like to use. And when you're ready, let's talk about what happened. And then she can come to you and say, I'm ready to talk now. And then in middle school, there can be bigger emotions about social things. And so, especially as they're figuring out, like, where do I fit in? Who am I? What do I, what kind of person do I want to be? Even though she's had that all along, there's something about middle school where there's a little bit of emotional turmoil where they're trying to figure it out because there are so many social dynamics that go into middle school, and feeling like you want to be yourself and you want to be accepted, but you also want to fit in and not be excluded by others. And at the same time, you don't want to care, you don't want to care what others think, but you do. So there's this like really big back and forth. And I think as adults, we go through that at times. And so it's just saying something like that to her where you're giving her the space. So you're offering her a space where she can vent without judgment. So maybe you're saying like, I'm here if you want to talk and I'll just listen. And I promise I won't get into like what I think you should do. But I also understand if you need space. And then if you want to talk about it later, I'm here for you. If you don't want to talk through it with me, that's okay too. So that is like the hardest part, is like, it's okay if you don't want to talk to me about it, but I'm here if you do. And it's continuing to offer that. I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And same thing in high school. It's like, if you need space, it's totally okay. Just know that I'm here if you want to talk about what's going on, and making sure that she knows that you're available, and also letting her know that it's okay to feel overwhelmed. It's okay to just need someone to listen without giving advice. And so really what all of these things are going to do is empower your daughter to feel more confident in understanding, managing, and expressing her emotions in healthy ways. It's going to help her have better communication because she'll have open dialogue with you. She'll have that emotional validation. She will feel more comfortable talking to you and to others about how she's feeling. And then it's going to give you both a resilient mindset, because both you and your daughter, or the girls in your life, are going to learn how to build the tools and the things that she needs to decompress and to process through things in healthy ways, and to adapt to challenges with more confidence and with it feeling easier. It doesn't mean every time it's going to feel easy, but she'll have I almost like to think of it as a tool belt of things she can go to help her through any of those big emotions she's feeling, and just making her feel like seen and know that it's okay to have these strong feelings. It's very normal, because their hormones are all over the place as they're growing up. And so as an adult, we have to realize that and not think of it like, well, why can't they just get over it? There's a lot going on in their bodies as they're growing up. And so just reminding yourself of that and just having empathy about it and being there to support her and knowing that it doesn't have to look the same way every time is really, really important. So I hope this was helpful to you. And, I know you love the girls in your life and you want to support them as best you can. I'm here for you if you need anything. And I want you to try some of these things out and just see what works, and see what your daughters think about what they need in these certain moments. And I'd love to hear from you about it and what's working. And if you need support, like I said, I'm here for you. And until next time, hang in there. Keep supporting your girls through these big emotions, and know that you're not alone, and that you'll all get through it together, and you'll come out on the other side closer and more connected, and she'll have better tools as she's growing up into a young woman. I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining another empowering episode of the Raising Confident Girls podcast. Share today's insights with caregivers and friends, building beautiful relationships with strong girls. Hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We're not just a podcast, we're a community. Follow Girls Positivity Club on social media for more empowering content on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. This podcast empowers you, supporting incredible girls. Let's create strong, beautiful relationships with the girls in our lives. I appreciate you listening today. Stay confident, stay connected. Until next time, keep raising those confident girls. You've got this.